morning, YouTube. It's Beck here from Curated. Hope you're doing well. I just wanted to share with you a couple of projects that I have completed, which is quite exciting in the last little while. And the first one that I'm going to show you, a couple of people asked to see details of it, is my second Huswif. Now, I started making a Huswif as a result of the Roxy Sisters influence, and I made a brown one, which, oh look, it's just here. So I made this one, which I love, and I used a cross stitch piece that I had, and I'm going to move that one now, embellished, and actually I'll just show you a quick inside because I have changed up the new one. So it had a pocket that my project goes in, and that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. A pin cushion, a needle pad, a pin pad, a little jug for my scissors, which is probably my favorite part about the whole thing. And a little pocket here that I tucked, my threads and little bits that I might use for embellishment on the current project that I'm working on in. So I was super happy with this one. I really like it. There are a couple of things I wanted to improve going forward, and I'll show you what I've done with the second one. So this is a smaller one, or a more streamlined one perhaps, and it was stitched with a piece of bark cloth that I cantha stitched all over, and it gives it that, you can see here, that lovely texture. And then where the flowers were, I picked out the golden tones and the green. So the green is just roughly kind of thread painted. And then the centers of the daisies, some of them have got a weave stitch, some have got French knots, and some are just thread stitched. So like a variety of stitches to kind of, I guess, enhance, in my opinion, the beautiful bark cloth that I was working with. And then I closed this somewhat unusually in terms of when I open it up, you'll see, with a button here, and I used a beautiful green vintage button I had in my collection, piece of ribbon and a yo-yo to just do a little loop to catch that. And the reason why it's a bit unusual is because it opens that way. So it's kind of opening to the middle of it rather than an end of it. So when I made this, I might try and zoom you out a little bit, and then you'll see what a haphazard kind of area I'm working with. But anyway, let's move my board a little bit. It's very technical over here. Okay. Actually, I'm going to turn this around because I like the initials up the right way. So I used batting, and I stitched the exterior of my panel to the batting to give my project some weight. And then I lined it with this beautiful old slubby linen French torchon, which is like a tea towel. And I used the little initials in there. And I've also got a little laundry tag, which says 74 on it, which is kind of fortuitous for me because that's the year I was born. So I, again, have a pocket to, this one doesn't have anything in there at the moment, have a pocket to put my project in, have a more fully stuffed pin cushion, because on the other one, my pins were coming through to the exterior if I left them in like this. Now, these ones don't come through, like I can press all over there and that's okay. But when I shared a photo of this on Instagram, one of my lovely commenters made a really good suggestion that you could back this in either cardboard or maybe even like template plastic, so that your needle or your pins, or needles if they're in there, cannot come through to the outside if they're left in there. So I thought that was a really good suggestion for my third Huswif. You heard it here first. Definitely a third Huswif coming. So I again have a needle pad, and this one, because of the way I ended up folding it, like so, it actually, the needles have to go this way rather than the other because otherwise they might be bent in half. And I guess that probably wasn't very well thought through, but it turned out that I wanted to close it this way so that I could have the beautiful flowers seen, rather than if it went this way, the front of it would have been just the lovely but not so cute, mostly kind of lavender background. So that's why I did that. And I really like when I turned it over that I got some of the flowers, the beautiful white daisies, on both ends of this. Now this I just turned over because I decided to, basically. I could have probably put another pocket there, but I wanted it streamlined. Project pocket, pin cushion, needle pad, and then I used the lovely Creates with Jen kind of idea to make a little drawstring bag. And currently, because this one doesn't have a project in it, it's just got 3 things. Thread that I love to use, some pearl 8 thread, and a little pair of snips. So you can fit more into that, so some more threads, etc. And going forward, if I was to make this again, I would make this like this component of it, because I will make another Huswif because I love them so much. I would make the walls of my bag a little bit taller. And inside this, and with the pin cushion as well, I used a beautiful vintage cotton with greens and yellows and the white daisy. So they tie together really nicely. I had originally planned to use kind of more similar toned fabrics, and I got stuck with this project for a while. I think I just didn't like how it came together. This one I'm incredibly happy with. So simple Huswif project bag, whatever you want to call it. I will put a slow stitching type project in here and carry it around with me. And it closes up like so. So really happy with that. I'm just going to get the next project that I've completed. So the next project I've completed is also a slow stitching project, and it's a needlebook. And these are my very favorite things to make. I have lots of kind of project bags on the go, and I like to keep all my things, like I like a project to be able to take it with me wherever I'm going. So I try to keep all the things that I might use together. So that means I do have a lot of pairs of snips and a lot of reels of cotton and a lot of needles. That's just the way it works best for me. Like, I am trying to steal moments from a day when I might get a chance to stitch. So this one is tied with 2 pieces of that beautiful slubby French linen. Not the same pieces was in the Huswif, but I just cut a very slim slice of that. So it's just over ½ an inch wide. And then I blanket stitched down the end so that it won't fray. I like how it's got the little stripes over here. And made some ties for this. And I wanted a really simple tie rather than lace. Like most of the needle books that you'll see me make have more lacy bits. But I thought that this tied better with this particular needle book. I used a piece of gorgeous old quilt, and it was really damaged. And I wanted to show that you don't have to throw out a piece of damaged quilt. You can still love it. Like, to me, this is so beautiful. And it's so, like, it's really haphazard, like the design of this quilt. Like, it had some like flowers from a grandmother's flower garden, but then it just had like big clumps of hexagons in one color and like a wedge of pink over here. So it was a bit of a bizarre design, which just caught my fancy. And it's got beautiful hand stitching on it, and it's got some machines, like it's hand pieced, but it has got some machine stitching on it in places, that the quilt, not this actual piece, I don't think. And I think that's because it was repaired over time. So this one had, this little piece had a number of faults. Like there's a hole here and here and here. There was a big wedge of fabric missing under here. And the seams had come apart here and here. And I kind of made this as an example to show to students or to people that might be interested, like on YouTube, that you don't have to throw out a textile like this. It can absolutely be repaired and still be beautiful. So I used a bit of the same quilt that I had cut off, and I just blanket stitched around that onto the other quilt to cover up that hole that's under there. I did some weave stitch here, and I've got a tutorial on how I do weave stitch. I use it a lot in kind of my simple type embroideries that I like to do. And then I've cantha stitched on a few little bits of a fabric that is of about the same era as the quilt top, and it kind of ties together really well. Now, I love this. If you are super neat and like everything matchy-matchy, this is probably your worst nightmare. Maybe look away now. But anyway, so that's the exterior of my needle book with the 2 threads that I have. And I have, to join my layers, no, I don't have layers in this exterior, sorry, not to join my layers. To edge this, I have, this was the edge of the quilt, and I've just here done some blanket stitch because there's a pocket on the interior. And then this was a cut edge of the quilt, so I blanket stitched along here and along the top. And here I've just used a little bit of vintage red and white, kind of almost like a ticking fabric, to kind of create a binding on that edge of it. And I did that just because I like the look of it. It's very haphazard, and I was embracing that. So when I open up my needle book, it looks like so. And it's got a pocket that runs both sides of the cover, and it's seamed through the center, and all the elements of this needle book are seamed. Actually, that's not true. I've just opened to one that's not. It's seamed through here, and this page is just caught in that center seam. It's not, it doesn't run the length of the book. So it's quite a simple one. Kind of playing towards that lovely exterior that I just shared. I've got a quilt, like a pocket made of a piece of quilt with beautiful hand stitching on it. And that's a different, actually, cut of quilt. And I've just done a little embellishment, kind of suitable for, I don't know, the simple project that this is, or the simple kind of stitching that this is. I did add another piece of quilt up here, like cut from this same quilt. It was a leftover little bit. I've blanket stitched that on. I've done some weave stitch. Now, there was no hole underneath that. I just wanted some more weight to the project. So I've got that. And then on the front, I just put in a yo-yo, just because why not? A yo-yo makes everything better, in my opinion. And then I've used one whole doily that is folded in half, and it has this gorgeous little applique with these little daisies on, which I'm a sucker for a daisy. And it's just got, like, you could tuck a project in here. So this could become a whole project bag, or, and this side, it's stitched up higher on purpose so that it would hold it in a little bit better. Whereas this side, you might just put like a little bit of stitching in, or some EPP papers or something like that. And then I have one needle felt page, and I was just working with, like, I was really scrappy intentionally with this project. So I had 2 scraps of wool felt that weren't big enough, and I joined them down the center, weren't big enough to do the whole size of this needle book. I joined them down the center with a stitch that on the front, it's horizontal, and on the back, it's vertical stitches. And, you know, just embellished on the side here, and did a little bit of blanket stitch over here. Mostly the stitches I'm adding are for prettiness and beauty. Sometimes they are holding things together. Like here, this blanket stitch is holding this piece of a gorgeous little doily on. And this one was chosen to go in here because, one, like the blanket stitch here was just very sweet. But also, two, that little daisy is just so gorgeous. So I've kind of invisible stitched through here. It's got caught in a couple of the area, like edges, with that blanket stitch from the piece on the back side. And then I've just done a little row of stitching, which is showing up really well in the light here, with just a very fine Metla thread that I like to use. And it's just so that it, like, you know, it's not going to come away. It's not a pocket. This is a very fine doily. It's very sweet. And then I had 2 little bits of vintage fabric hanging around. This came out of, I don't know, a vintage scrap pack that I bought somewhere. And this was a little bit of fabric that had been gifted to me. And I just made another little pocket because why not? So, I mean, it's not really particularly useful, that page. I mean, you could put like packs of needles in there, etc. It's more just because it adds to the whimsy and the kind of prettiness of the project, which floats my boat. So lots of pockets, and then the only other embellishment I did was a blanket stitched on with wool there, a little bit of fabric, and then kind of invisible stitched with that same Metla thread on a couple of scraps of fabric. I just wanted to talk about that. Actually, I'll just finish this first. So that's my needle book. What I like to do with it is have a long thread that ties on the opposite side. So it kind of, didn't tie then, wraps around. Just, there is a nice weight to this project. And to me, this is entirely satisfying. So I just wanted to talk about the little scrap pieces for a second. So when you're making things with vintage textiles, you will sometimes end up with little bits of fabric like so. Like sometimes they've got a weird edge on them, or like a non kind of regular edge, or little snippets. Now I will save these. You'll probably see me use them in something. I don't know why. That this like light yellow linen, very fine linen, and this blue blanket stitch edging on a doily that you saw in my needle book, that little bit cut off, I still love that as that bit, and they may be perfect for inclusion in something else. This was one of my very favorite vintage fabrics, and I found it actually on the ground behind the desk, and there was two little bits. So one little bit is gone into my needle book, and then this will be used for something else. And when I was regularizing the size of this, I had some little bits that didn't really fit properly, and so I've cut them off. And as you saw, I used them to mend my quilt, but they will go into many projects, and they're not, just hold on to them, they're useful. I actually think a little needle book, like if you had two bits this same size, these are not the same size, but say they were, and you made a tiny little needle book and it went with some, I mean, you wouldn't even need wool felt in there because you could put your needles in that, but could be very sweet little project or in a little stitching bag. So they're the projects that I have finished in the last little while, Huswif and a needle book, and I'm still working on all my quilts. Not surprisingly, they're not finished. I hope everybody's getting lots of stitching time. It's freezing here in Newcastle, Australia at the moment. It's winter has really, really hit. And I hope if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it's starting to warm up and you're getting beautiful summer weather. Or if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you're keeping warm. Okay, happy stitching, everybody.